Hello and welcome. You're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Gauri Dwivedi and today we'll talk about Donald Trump's rant. He clubbed India and Russia together as dead economies. What's the thought there? Well, Donald Trump is a whimsical man, viewers. Everyone understands this, and even as Indian and American trading teams were thrashing out a potential trade deal, Donald Trump decided to hit India with a 25% tariff. So all Indian goods that are exported to the US now will be having an additional 25% duty. And in addition to that, there will also be an unknown levy for buying Russian oil. But that's just part of the story. The other half is the American president's incessant rant where he clubbed India and Russia as dead economies, as he lumped the two together, saying he doesn't care about the Russia-India trading relationship, indicating an escalation in Trump's continued attack against India. And that's our big debate on Left, Right and Centre today. Why is Trump bothered about the Modi-Putin Dosti? And what does it really mean for the India-US relationship, the India-Russia relationship? And more importantly, what's the dynamics that's at play between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump, who were once looking to strike a deal, but as things stand right now, are farthest away from any potential peace deal? And is that the reason why things are now escalating? Before we move forward, let's play out this report that tells you in greater detail what's the real story and the political firestorm that it has caused here.
First came the tariff, then the tirade. A day after slapping a whopping 25% tariffs on imports from India, Donald Trump dropped another bombshell. Hitting out at India and Russia, he wrote on his Truth Social, "I don't care what India does with Russia. They can take their dead economies down together for all I care." However, he has also affirmed that Prime Minister Modi is a friend and US is still in talks with India.
Prime Minister Modi is a friend of mine, but they don't do very much business in terms of business with us. They sell a lot to us, but we don't buy from them. You know why? Because the tariff is so high. They have one of the highest tariffs in the world. Now they're willing to cut it very substantially, but we'll see what happens. We're talking to India now. We'll see what happens. It doesn't matter too much whether we have a deal or whether we charge them a certain tariff, but you'll know at the end of this week.
24 hours later, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal's address in the Parliament on tariff issue.
सरकार हमारे किसानों, श्रमिकों, एंटरप्रेन्योर्स, उद्यमी, निर्यातकों, सूक्ष्म, लघु और मध्यम उद्योगों और उद्योग जगत के सभी हितधारकों के कल्याण की रक्षा और संवर्धन को सर्वोच्च महत्व देती है। हम अपने राष्ट्रीय हितों को सुरक्षित करने और आगे बढ़ाने के लिए सभी आवश्यक कदम उठाएंगे।
Shortly after Trump's dead economy post, leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi ran away with it.
Everybody knows that the Indian economy is a dead economy. I'm glad that President Trump has stated a fact.
Rahul's bid to target the BJP government and the Prime Minister using Trump's dead economy remark backfired immediately, with his party colleagues and allies taking an opposite stand.
It may be just a bargaining tactic. As you know, the trade negotiations are still going on. And therefore, there is a possibility that in the course of negotiations, this may come down. I wish our negotiators good luck and good courage, because we can't afford to buckle under. We have to keep our national interests as number one.
तो हमारी आर्थिक स्थिति कहीं से भी कमजोर नहीं है, तो इसलिए हम आर्थिक रूप से कोई हमें कहे कि हमें खत्म कर देगा, उसकी गलत फहमी है। तो ट्रम्प की गलत फहमी जी रहा।
सर, इम्पोज किया जो
टैरिफ की तो मैंने आलोचना की कि ये गलत है। टैरिफ इम्पोज करना, हर देश को अधिकार है कि किसके साथ व्यापार करे, उसमें इस तरह रोक लगाना, ब्रिक्स के खिलाफ बोलना, रशिया से इम्पोर्ट के खिलाफ है, बिजनेस के खिलाफ बोलना, ये उनका जो है कतई उचित नहीं है।
Slamming the dead economy remark, Congress ally Shiv Sena Uddhav Thackeray's Member of Parliament Priyanka Chaturvedi wrote, and I quote, "Calling it a dead economy can only come from a position of arrogance or ignorance." BJP leadership was quick to taunt the confusion in the opposition camp, comparing Shashi Tharoor and Rahul Gandhi. On a social media post, BJP's K. Annamalai wrote, "One spoke for India's interest and the other spoke in a tone that would please his offshore masters." Amid intensifying politics over tariffs, Trump reiterates India as a friend but not ready to accept India-Russia bonhomie at the same time. Back-channel talks and negotiations are on, but the question remains, will there be a breakthrough? With Abhishek Datta, Bureau Report, NDTV.
All right, viewers. Now, the tariff announcement that came in from Donald Trump was a measured announcement, some would say, because there was an expectation that 1st of August deadline was coming in and Trump wanted to be true to his word. But what followed was just rant. Some would say frustration being vented out by the President of the United States, who thought that there's a deal on the table, but India turned out to be a far tougher negotiator than EU and some of the other trading partners of US. Let's tell you now what were the specific missteps that Donald Trump has actually taken in the last few weeks for you to better understand this frustration, which really came out in the form of that rant that he vented out. First and foremost, he announced an India-Pakistan ceasefire, something he had no business to. On the floor of the House, Indian government, Prime Minister and all other ministers have pointed out in no uncertain terms there was no call that took place whatsoever. It was just that the ceasefire took place only and only at the behest of Pakistan DGMO asking for one. So that's the first misstep that Donald Trump made. Second one, taking credit for truce. Ever since Donald Trump has come to power, the one thing that he's been talking about again and again is about how he's going to end wars. He hasn't been able to end the 2 wars and 2 conflicts that he really wanted to end. So he's trying to take credit for something he had absolutely no reason to do so and no role to play above all. So that's the second misstep that Donald Trump made. Next, hosting Pakistani Army Chief Asim Munir, mainstreaming the man responsible for the Pahalgam deadly attack. Yes, US has gone ahead and designated TRF as a terror organization. It is stood by India, but why host the man responsible for that heinous terror attack? Let's get you the other key misstep that he's actually put out, which is hyphenating India and Pakistan. India and Pakistan in no world parameters can be hyphenated at all. And Donald Trump made that single biggest error of judgment, which has actually revealed the kind of frustration he's feeling. And that misstep has had a huge impact, something that people in his administration are now feeling the heat on. Next one, the flip-flop on Putin. That's another very important aspect to really understand why this rant that has come in where he's lumped India and Russia together and how it's playing out. Now, Putin was somebody that Donald Trump was keen on having some sort of a negotiation with, wanted to end the war, had grand plans to be able to have a better deal for West Asia. Suddenly, he's now enemy number 1, the man who's responsible for not being able to end the war whatsoever. So that's the flip-flop on Putin, and everything else needs to just be read in that order. Ranting about dead economies. Again, India is the biggest growth engine in the world right now. IMF only 48 hours back has actually improved and increased India's growth forecast. Everybody knows this is nothing but a frustrated man talking and ranting on Truth Social, his media platform. Let's quickly put out the big questions that we're going to be asking our panelists this evening. First and foremost, how should India really now be continuing the trade talks with US? There is a tariff hike that has been put out, but parallelly negotiations are still on. How should now we be approaching this going forward? A US team is going to be coming to India in the next couple of weeks. What should be now the trade negotiations from here on in the wake of that tariff hike and that uncertain levy that is causing greater uncertainty? Let's move ahead. Let's tell you the other big questions. Will this lead to some sort of a trade war? This is another aspect that needs to be understood. Global trade is a two-way phenomena. It's not like somebody goes ahead and slaps tariffs and the other side just keeps sitting. Global trade means there are tariffs and counter tariffs. Nothing new, nothing that hasn't happened in the past. Could we see that round happening here on as well? Let's tell you the other key questions that we are asking. Can India risk pivoting away from Russian oil? This is the premise of the entire tariff and uncertain levy. Can we really afford to do that? Because this has ramifications for our fiscal math and ramifications for global prices. When American consumers start paying for more gas, suddenly this rant that Trump is putting out right now will be wholly different and have a whole new meaning whatsoever. Going forward, the other two questions: should Delhi double down on its non-aligned policy? There's been for too long reservations in terms of how America can never be a trusted partner. It has happened in the past, and we're going to put that out here in terms of the American duplicity at stake. Should we be doubling down on that non-aligned policy? And lastly, will this give fillip to the Russia-India ties? One thing that has actually stood ground time and again, and will that actually give a fresh impetus to this bilateral relationship? Let's quickly now get in the guests joining us this evening, Ambassador Kanwal Sibal, Mr. Raymond Vickery, and Fred Weyer joining me on the broadcast. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for speaking to me on Left, Right and Center. Ambassador Sibal, let me start with you. As someone who understands the India-Russia relationship very well, as someone who understands how the dynamic is playing out right now, what would you say about this rant that Donald Trump has put out, lumping these two economies, India and Russia, together and almost saying he doesn't care?
It's a bit surprising that he continues to target India in this rather unsavory manner. Why is he calling the fourth largest economy in the world, would be the third largest by 2030, the highest growing large economy in the world, a dead economy? Why does he use language like that? It is totally untrue. And then, we have a total trade with the United States in goods and services of $200 billion. It's very substantial. So why is he trading with a dead economy if India is so unimportant in his eyes? So this kind of highly personalized how should I say, attacks on India doesn't behove his position. But then this is what his personality is. He's very loose with his statements. He doesn't adhere to facts. He says what he wants, and he wants to get his way. He's domineering. He can be very, how should I say, intolerant in his vocabulary. So there it is.
A whole bunch of adjectives you've come out with, Ambassador Sibal, as you described Donald Trump. Mr. Raymond Vickery, let me get you in there, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, Senior Associate for CSIS. Sir, this one can understand that trade negotiations haven't led to any breakthroughs, but what Donald Trump and the manner in which he's been communicating with what he terms a key partner is extremely disappointing.
Well, thanks very much for having me. I think at the outset it must be understood that the relationship between the United States and India, two great democracies, is perhaps the most important in the world. There's really no problem in international affairs, whether it be climate change, whether it be health, whether it be security, vis-a-vis China, that can't be helped by a close cooperation between the U.S. and India. This has been understood by Republicans and Democratic presidents alike, starting with President Clinton, going through George W. Bush, the U.S.-India Civil Nuclear Agreement, Obama, and even in the first administration of President Trump. Unfortunately, President Trump, in this time around with the Project 2025 setting forth a blueprint for aggrandizement of the president, has torpedoed much of the multilateral approach to international affairs, which has served us so well since World War II. So it is up to the saner heads in the United States and in India get away from this transactional approach and look at the real values underlying the relationship and get us back on track.
Okay. Yes. Let's get in a view from Moscow as well. Let's get in Fred to tell us. Fred, a lot of people feel that the flip-flop that has happened from Donald Trump's side has a lot to do with how he feels frustrated that there is no peace deal happening with Vladimir Putin, and everything is just flowing in from that frustration, and that's how he's targeting a key partner like India as well. What's the view like in Moscow right now in terms of the fresh rant that has come in from Donald Trump, and also the impact that you think it's going to have in terms of the India-Russia ties?
Well, Trump is definitely trying to force changes in the trading equations that he has with various countries, parts of the world. And it can't be denied that he's enjoying a lot of success with these battering ram tactics that he's using. He's getting some agreements. But here he is meddling with a relationship that's traditional. It's 70 years of good relations between Russia and India, trading relations, and he wants to target especially Russian arms sales and Russian energy sales to India to get them presumably to buy those things from the United States instead. And he's using the Ukraine war, his frustration with Putin, which is very real. Putin has told him, I think that this turnabout on Putin is because the last conversation between Putin and Trump, Putin made it absolutely clear that Russia would not be making any fundamental concessions on its war objectives. And this is, I mean, Trump is threatening Russia with massive tariffs, but that falls flat.
Indeed.
Because there's very little trade between Russia and the United States to begin with, and Russia has endured more than 3 years of intense sanctions, and it seems to be, certainly not dead.
Okay. No economy is dead, and most certainly not India. I can definitely speak about India. It's said to be the third largest by 2028. IMF only 48 hours back increased the growth forecast. And Raymond Vickery, the question I want to ask you is that here is a trading relationship which is supposed to reach $500 billion by 2030. That's a shared goal. That's a goal not just for India, but for US as well. That's the shared goal of the bilateral trade relationship. Suddenly, it's now become all about ranting, all about calling the other, the dead economy phrase that he used, saying that I don't care how they participate. Where is this headed? Forget the fact that it's undiplomatic. Forget the fact that there is no class and it's a very crassy way of speaking. But where is this headed in terms of the thought process in Trump administration?
Well, this is nothing new in regard to Donald Trump. This is the way he has operated from day one, whether it be with the Central Park Five, whether it be attacking Obama as not American. This is his stock in trade to create chaos, to cause a problem, and then to ameliorate the problem that he's caused, even in part, and to claim a great victory. The Indian government has been told that, they know that, and yet there have been some who've thought that through blandishment, making a few concessions here or there, flattery, that you'd be able to change the stripes on the tiger. That's not the way it's going to work in the long run. But what, in my view, has to happen is India needs to understand what they're dealing with, and then resort to its own values of democracy, values of non-aggression, values against imperialism. Okay. And move forward on those values rather than succumbing to the sort of transactional approach, which is that of President Trump.
Okay, I think there's another side to it, Raymond Vickery, and let me get that view from Ambassador Sybil, which is that what this rant in the last 24 hours, particularly the last two posts on Truth Social, have really suggested and told India is that can you really trust America as a strategic partner? The apprehension that many have had ever since the 1971 war. You may say it's been 50 years, it's been half a century, but those apprehensions in several corridors as far as India's strategic thinking is concerned remain. And they once again come to light with the kind of statements that are being made by Donald Trump. Ambassador Sybil, your thoughts there?
No, I don't think we should look at it that way. Our relationship with Russia has a logic and a dynamic of its own. It's not as if we have had relations with Russia to spite the United States, not at all. In fact, we were pushed into Russia relationship in the 50s because of the West. And Russia has been a very steady partner. Russia has never sanctioned us but the United States and the West have sanctioned us over decades. Russia has supplied us very advanced military equipment, which the United States didn't do until recently. Russia has supported us in the UN Security Council, whereas America has always been against us until recently. So I don't think we should say that we should take the line that we will improve our ties even further with Russia in order to hit at the United States. I think we should keep the two relationships separate. The important thing is that we will not allow, should not allow, our Russia relationship to be determined by pressures from the United States. That can prove very costly for us. In fact, that will make us more dependent on the United States, and they'll have greater handle to put pressure on us, coerce us, and take control of our foreign policy. But yes, we must keep in mind that the United States is a very difficult partner. It'll continue to pose problems to us. And these problems can become even more difficult as India rises and Russia and the United States begins to feel that India is challenging the United States in certain areas, and therefore points of pressure on India should be retained or even strengthened. Now, what is actually very, how should I say, illustrative of what you said about our caution in dealing with the United States is that he has come back to equating India and Pakistan.
Yeah.
At one moment,
duplicity is
India
there,
and Pakistan, by virtue of the fact that there is no comparison between India and Pakistan in any
Of
case,
course.
in any dimension. But he started linking them together. Even in his latest tweet, quite unnecessarily and provocatively, he said we're going to invest in Pakistan's oil sector.
Indeed. Okay, I have time for very quick closing comments from both of you, Mr. Raymond and Mr. Fred. Let me start with you, Fred. We've been telling you about the thought that we have in Delhi and how we are viewing what Donald Trump is saying. How do you think this is now going to play out? Quick closing comments.
Well, I think in Russia, they've started to disregard what Donald Trump says. They have their own idea of the way forward, and they're very aware of the mercurial nature of Trump's, not just his statements, but his various negotiating ploys.
Okay.
And I think they're just systematically disregarding them now.
All right. Quick closing comments. Mr. Raymond, please.
I think that India needs to examine its interest in terms of its own values, of democracy, of human rights, of anti-imperialism, of non-aggression, of the values which are in the UN Charter and in the Indian Constitution.
Okay.
And that means that it should not stand aside when Russia invades Ukraine and just offer lip service. It needs to re-examine it in terms of its own long-term interests, and those are not of a strong Russia.
Those interests itself, how they will be fulfilled, is now something that many are asking in the wake of these messages, these tweets that have come out from President Trump. I'm afraid I have to leave it there. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on this edition of Left, Right and Center. Well, viewers, what one can say is that the only thing consistent about Donald Trump's argument is the sheer inconsistency of it. Now, the two examples that I'll give, one, early on in his tenure, Donald Trump lambasted Zelensky since he blamed the Ukrainian president for the war. Now the war is totally Putin's fault. So quickly it has changed in less than 6 months. The second inconsistency, Donald Trump is saying that India is the number 2 buyer of Russian oil, and therefore there is a penalty or a levy that's being imposed in addition to the tariffs. China is the number 1 buyer of Russian oil, ahead of India. Why does it get a better deal with Donald Trump? Some say it's leverage. Well, the fact is it's one of the most fundamental Trumpisms that New Delhi now needs to make peace with, which is inconsistency is the only pattern that Donald Trump's arguments have so far. I'm going to leave it there. Thanks so much, viewers, for tuning in to this edition of Left, Right and Center. Up ahead, news continues. Stay with us.